Hey there! I have such an incredible story to tell. Have you ever heard about the African Queen, Mother Yaa Asantewaa? Well, if you do, congratulations. If you don't, tune in because this is really a tale to tell. So, who was Queen Yaa Asantewaa? Good question. She was an African queen. Not much people know of an African queen. Mostly Europeans and so forth. But the African queens have such a legendary tale that must be told. Queen Yaa Asantewaa was an influential female figure back in the beginnings of the 20th century. She is the queen of the Asante Empire. Today that is known as present-day Ghana. She is believed to be born between 1840s and the 1860s. And guess what was she before she became a queen? You're gonna be surprised. She was a skillful farmer. Imagine that, a skillful farmer becoming a queen. But that's how things were back in the days in the Ghana culture. She was related to the Asante as he was her eldest brother, right? She was given the title Queen Mother in 1880s. Imagine how powerful she was, as her brother was the most powerful Asante in that time. The Asante Empire was an Akan empire and kingdom that existed in 1701, and it fell in 1957 with the Anglo-Ashanti War, which Queen Yaa Asantewaa made great impact in. This is no original empire. It was one of the most wealthiest, prosperous, and powerful empire of the western parts of Africa. Imagine that, not too long ago. That was during the earliest centuries of the 20th century. Earliest part of the 20th century. So, this kingdom stretched across the western region, the eastern region, the central region, Brong Ahofo, I hope I pronounced that right, as well as the Ivory Coast and Tonga. It was a vast kingdom, really large, and that is why it caught the British eyes. Not only that, it was rich in gold. So, during the 1701 and the beginning of the 20th century, the Ashanti people prospered and their culture just flourished. First, they were famous for gold, which is the most wanted item around the world. Gold, right? And brass. They had gold and brass. There were also good craftsmen. They made furnitures, and they were good at making a bright colored woven cloth called Kent or Kenti. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Kent. I'm gonna say Kent. Also, the Ashanti people, their original language was called Twi. Twi. You got that? Twi. Not Twi. Tree. Tree. It's quite difficult to pronounce, but practice brings perfect. Tree, not twee. I hope you got that right. And even though I'm not quite proud of this part of the Ashanti culture, they did sell slaves. Yeah, they did it. So what were the responsibilities of Queen Mother Yaa Asantewaa? Queen Mother Yaa Asantewaa was given many responsibilities, but one of her main responsibilities was being the gatekeeper of the golden stool. The golden stool. That sounds quite legendary. What could that be? The golden stool is an emblem of the Ashanti kingdom, cultural system, and power. Since Queen Mother is elected to be the mother of the reigning king, she presents candidates for when the occupant of the stool becomes vacant, in turn protecting the establishment of authority. Additionally, since the Queen Mother is the main advisor, of the king. Yes, she is. Queen Mother, a female. Yes, she is the advisor of the king, and thus is the second highest position within the empire. She fulfills the role of guarding the golden stool. Wow, this golden stool is quite special. Remember when I mentioned that the Asante Empire fell after the Anglo-Ashanti War? Yes, I will now be mentioning to you the causes of the Anglo-Ashanti War, which Queen Yaa Asantewaa made great impact in. So in 1896, the Ashanti people started to rebel against the British who invaded the lands and were making an attempt to construct a Gold Coast colony. To retaliate, the British captured and exiled Asante. The Asante at that time was Yaa Asantewa's elder brother, also her grandson, Kofi Teni. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which was also a great leader at the time. So the British removed the king, the Asante, and other Asante leaders and exiled them to the Seychelles Island. This was all in the efforts of acquiring the golden stool. But why is it that they're making such an effort to acquire the golden stool? Of course, because the golden stool had held so much importance to the Asante Empire. And once the British had a hold on this, it means that they hold on to the power of the Asante people. This is something that Yaa Asantewaa will never ever allow. And I guess that is what started the final war of the Anglo-Ashanti War. What do I mean by final war? The Anglo-Ashanti War has been continuing for a long time. There has been 5 of them. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not even 1. 5 wars. And the final war, Yaa Asantewaa did not take the bullshit from the British. So there was a conflict that began when the British representative Sir Frederick Mitchell Hodgson sat on the golden stool. Guys, not even the Asante is allowed to sit on the golden stool. The golden stool has its own authority, it is its own power, right? It has its own say in the governance of the empire, and this British man sat on the golden stool. And since the golden stool wasn't a throne, when his act became known to Queen Yaa Asantewaa, she led the rebellion. She led the rebellion that caused the death of 1,000 British and Allied African soldiers and 2,000 Ashanti soldiers. right? And while the remaining leaders of the Ashanti Empire sat down and debated on how to respond to the threat of the British and this representative, Asantewaa stood her ground. She stood her ground and she rallied the troops, and her leadership and passion led the role as commander-in-chief of the Ashanti army. In turn, the Anglo-Ashanti War, fifth and final war against the British, became known as the Ashanti War of Independence / the War of the Golden Stool. The final war, which was also known as the Queen Yaa Asantewaa War of Independence, or the War of the Golden Stool, what really made Queen Yaa Asantewaa stood out in this war and impressed the British is how she was a woman and how she led the rebellion herself, right? She defended the Golden Stool, and she just became the image of strength and resistance. Unfortunately, she was captured, and during the rebellion and exiled. She was exiled to Seychelles Island, and she died in 1921. But she remains a powerful reminder due to her impactful actions in both empowering her people and in tactics against the British Army, right? So I have an important question for you. Do you have your Queen Yaa Asantewaa spirit? So based on this lesson, what have we learned about Queen Yaa Asantewaa? Yes, she was a warrior queen, a very strong one. The whole point of the story is that she was a woman who rebelled and led an army, a rebellion. The final war was led by her, right? She did not take crap from other people who came in the lands and did what they wanted to do. Queen Yaa Asantewaa was a warrior. And the reason I asked, do you have your warrior spirit? Are you the type of person that allows people to stamp on you? Are you the type of person that allows people to treat you anyway? Because Queen Yaa Asantewaa was a protector, a guider. She was a leader, and she did not allow anyone to belittle her, because she knew her worth. She knew her people's worth, and she was willing to sacrifice and fight to protect that image, that respectable image of her empire. And even though she failed, she still remains one of the most powerful figures in the western part of Africa, Ghana. Do you have your Yaa Asantewaa spirit? Because I know that I do. So now that we know what happened to Queen Mother Yaa Asantewaa after the Anglo-Ashanti War, what happened to the Golden Stool? Did the British acquire it? Fortunately, they did not. The Ashanti people managed to hide the stool. I don't quite remember where, but when it was discovered, it was said that some men who were working on a railroad or train track stole gold pieces and ornaments from the Golden Stool, and when it was found out, these men were, I think, banished or sued from the Gold Coast colony. The British left the Ashanti people alone with their Golden Stool, because, you know, they really fought hard and they hid it. They hid it because that is what that was what represented who they were as a people. It held so much power. It was like a god, a golden stool. And so that was one of the best part of the story, the tale of Yaa Asantewaa. Even though she fell in the war, even though the empire fell with the war, the golden stool was still protected away from the British. They could not retrieve it like how they wanted to, because the people put up a fight and they're like, okay, keep your golden stool. So what I really love about this story is the resilience and how much they fought. They kept fighting and they never stopped. Even though the last part they did lose after 5 wars. 5 wars. They managed to lose, but the golden stool, as they worked hard to protect, was protected from their enemies.